Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start with a tale of petty revenge in which our OP decided to take the bus home instead of walking. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Seed hogging? Get jogging. So I'm on the way home from the shops and I decided to take the bus. Really, it's only about 3 stops away. I should probably walk, but it's the middle of the Australian summer. I'm wearing thongs, my bags are heavy, and most significantly, I'm lazy. So I jump on the bus home and it's pretty full, no problem. Like I said, only going 3 stops, not far. More than happy to stand. I'm shuffling through the aisle past other standing people though, when suddenly about halfway down I see it. A middle-aged woman hogging a whole seat to herself. Now, I catch public transport every day, and let me tell you, if you take up a whole 2-person seat by yourself when other folk are standing, mate, that's 5 years gulag in my book. Not only is this woman not sharing the seat, she's moved herself to the aisle side so as to discourage anyone else from sitting down. Not on my watch. Now, previously, I'd been perfectly content to stand, but that's all over now. I walk on over to this woman, look her straight in the eye, and with my nicest young man voice, broad smile, and most unwavering gaze, ask if I can please sit there. She glares daggers at me, but relents. But not by shuffling over, though. Instead, she stands in place with a huff and turns her shoulder a few centimeters to the right to indicate that, yeah, there's a seat, but if I want it, I can squeeze past. Oh, you done, honey. I am not the least bit dissuaded. Happily, I squeeze past the standing woman, and gosh, well, I sure am a big clumsy boy carrying some bulky old shopping, aren't I? And there's not just a lot of room between these seats. It takes me a few seconds to shuffle my lumbering butt all the way in, by which time the lady's taken a few whacks of the old green bag and my grocery-laden backpack, not to mention been stumbled over once or twice by my big old uncoordinated feet. I sit down in contented silence. She lowers her huffing self down next to me. I spread out and brush up a little with my hairy legs. She fixes me with a glare. We sit in silence for 2 minutes. And then, wouldn't you know it, my stop arrives, and this woman is forced to get to her feet once more so we can do the whole dance again on the way out. Slap go the grocery bags. Slap, slap, slap. I hope you enjoyed your personal space. Next time, just shove over. It's fine when the train bus is mostly empty. No big deal. But if you see more and more people getting on, move your butt or your belongings. And our second story, screw me out of comp time and you screw yourself out of a job. I work for a software company as a QA test lead. The company really liked me and I went from a general assistant to a test lead and tripled my pay in the first 2.5 years I was there. I have a strong work ethic and my opinion held a lot of weight 4 years in when I was leaving to pursue other ventures. My last manager there, who we'll call Half-Day Hambly, not his real name, but similar, because he had a habit of disappearing after lunch on Thursdays and Fridays. None of us minded too much since when he was there, he liked to shoulder surf and micromanage projects where he knew absolutely nothing and generally made a jerk of himself. He was known for forcing projects off track and then blaming the platform programmers for the stall. He had no problems tossing people under the bus to give the appearance that he was competent. Right before I left, I had to have minor outpatient surgery, and I stopped by his office to let him know that I'd need to work from home for a few days afterward, which was a routine occurrence in my department, and I'd done it on a couple of occasions. He agreed, and I went about my business until he informed me after I put in 30 hours from home while recovering that I would need to use comp time to cover my missed hours. I went to him and reminded him of the fact that he'd okayed it, and he gave me an F-you smile and said, well, I guess you should have put it in an email. So the following week, when I did my exit interview with HR on my last day, I unloaded on them and told them all about Half-Day Hambly's adventures in mismanagement and how he regularly skipped out after lunch to go play golf on Thursdays and Fridays. The HR manager I spoke with tried calling his office to bring him down right then, but got no answer. He asked me if I'd go by his office and bring him down, but when I went up, I found his office locked and no one answered the door. The look on the HR manager's face was priceless when I told him this, as it was 1:30 p.m. on a Friday when this happened. The HR manager had my check adjusted for me, wished me luck, and I left with a smile on my face, knowing I'd outed this a-hole. 2 weeks later, my good friend and coworker called me up to say, guess who they just fired? HR started watching Old Half Day after I left and determined his caliber of excellence would serve him best somewhere else. And our last story. Psycho ex-wife gets served. Literally. I divorced my first wife back in 2012. Long story short, on top of many issues she had, her infidelity was the last straw for me. I've since remarried and have a beautiful baby boy. Shortly after the divorce, while then single, my ex would contact me out of nowhere, apologizing for everything and asking for me back. I would kindly tell her no and wish her the best. She would then immediately flip out on me, calling me a jerk and blah, 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 reassuring my decision. This happened a handful of times over the next year or so. A few years later, I married the type of woman every man dreams about. Independent, intelligent, funny, generous, caring, selfless, and beautiful. Within weeks of us getting married, my wife and all of her close friends received a friend request on Facebook from a very suspicious profile. Again, my wife is very intelligent, and with a little bit of detective work, concluded without a doubt that the fake profile was in fact my ex. She kindly sent her an instant message, letting her know she wasn't fooling anyone, and wouldn't you know, the profile disappeared. The same thing has happened several times over the past few years. A year ago, we became parents, and that's when things got really bad. Along with social media stalking came actual stalking. I would notice her car parked down the street from my house. I'd make a point to walk towards it, and it would suddenly drive off. We finally ended up getting off social media for the privacy of our family. I found out later through a friend that she had gotten remarried as well. Kicker to that is she married a dude with the same first name as my wife. The craziness starts. One morning I woke up to a very odd text message. The person was claiming to be a friend of mine who I dated at one point following my divorce, asking if I wanted to meet. I found this very odd. The next morning I called the number back that it came from, and wouldn't you know, was the voicemail of my ex. I was furious. I called again later that day and managed to get her to answer. She denied sending the text and claimed that the phone was stolen. Really? I then received some very colorful voicemails from her in which she proved herself to be unstable. Over the next few weeks, my wife and I continued to receive very concerning text messages here and there from burners. I'm watching you. How's my dog? I got him in the house in the divorce. And finally, better take good care of that baby. That was it for me. I reported what I felt to be threatening messages to the police. They told me they couldn't do anything about the messages that came from the burners because there was no way to prove it was her. They were useless. My next course of action was to get a restraining order against her. This was easily accomplished by utilizing the odd text message in which she claimed to be another person, as well as the colorful voicemails. The best part is, when I was filing it as being fearful for my safety as well as the safety of my family. The order would also have been made public and presented to anyone and everyone she lives with, meaning her husband and in-laws. That means they would get to see the screenshots of the trashy text messages and read the dialogue of the voicemail she left. That would be entertainment at its finest. The tricky part was now just getting her served. I hired a private service company to serve her the restraining order. However, I assumed she would see this coming. My ex is one of those gals who bought a camera and suddenly started calling herself a photographer. She has a Facebook page. My wife had the idea to have someone message her and set up an appointment for a photo shoot at a park or something for senior pictures. That friend came through with flying colors. On the day she was to get served, my wife and I drove to the park for front row seats. I spotted her sitting in her car waiting for her client. I then called the server to direct him to her location. He kept me on speaker so we can hear the whole thing go down from a distance. It was wonderful. We watched the service officer slowly pull up next to her car, both cars facing the same direction. He then got out of his car and walked around his, walking up to her side window. We heard him knock on the window, through the phone, and her driver's window rolled down. From the distance we were, we could still make out the puzzled look on her face. Ashley Smith? Fake name, obviously. Yes, I'm an officer of the court for blank county, and these documents are for you. What is this? You've been served. Have a nice day. He then walked back around to his car and pulled away. He and I shared a short laugh over the phone, and I thanked him for his help. I was shocked to hear him laugh over the whole thing. I guess it'd be kind of fun to ruin people's day for a living. With the big yellow envelope in her hands, I drove by her on my way out of the parking lot as she sat in the driver's seat of her car. I slowed down to make sure she saw me. She looked like a deer in the headlights. With my passing by, she now knew what was in the envelope without even opening it, I assume. Haven't heard much from her since. I did hear from a friend that day who knew what was going down, that her Facebook page had been taken down that evening. I'm assuming she did that out of shame, or her husband was so livid with her, she got grounded. Haha. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.